Hello guys, welcome to my Diablo 4 Barbarian Bloody Thorns build. This is going to be a build guide. I'm going to start off with some gameplay and then we'll get into the build and the aspects, and we'll go over what sort of idea you want to have when you're going into your paragons. So I'm starting on I think it's a 26 nightmare dungeon. Yeah, level 26 nightmare dungeon. Just went up a little bit so that we could get to a decent spot where it could show off a little bit of the gameplay. You can see the AoE and single target damage. Let me turn that down a little bit. I play with a controller. It's just a lot easier for me. Build's good for whatever you want to run. I previously made a video on this build and we were running a tier 35 dungeon and we completed that no problem. But I was kind of vague in a lot of points that I got in the last video, so I wanted to make a little bit more in-depth guide. So as you see, we just kind of tear through these guys. They're really no problem. Trying to keep Berserker mode up the whole time. That ensures that we have the most thorns possible, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. So we're just running through this. I don't really kill the trash mobs too much. Skeletal constructs, easy. So when you're doing this, because they don't attack, we have to rely a lot on our bleed damage and other things attacking us to kill whatever we're after. Sorry lady, we're not helping you today. We're just destroying the constructs. So you see, it just kind of smashes AoE. Excellent single target damage. Alright, we'll go to town and go over the build. Alright, so for the skills, I'm gonna go over them briefly in here, and I'll make sure to leave a link in the description with the full guide for the build. I don't have the Paragon set up on the build guide, but I do have all of the skills that you'll need. So we start out with Flay, and we go all the way to Combat Flay, and that's going to be, we're going to stack it for damage reduction and extra thorns. The second skill is going to be Rend. We're going to max Rend. Flay, we only put one skill in. Rend, we max out because that's our main source of damage. That's how we get a lot of the bleed procced on everything. And we go with the Furious Rend on that. Down here, we put one in each of the shouts. We make sure that we have one in each of the shouts. For Rallying Cry, we make sure we do the Enhanced and the Strategic. For Challenging, we make sure to do the Enhanced and the Strategic as well. And then for Warcry, Enhanced and Mighty Warcry. That's nice to get that base life is Fortify. You're going to want to have Fortify up all the time because you got to take a lot of damage. For passives, we do the Outburst passive. This is going to give us Thorns based on our max life, Thorns based, and as well as just base Thorns. Tough as Nails is going to increase our Thorns based on a percent. So these are very important passives. And this passive right here, we're going to max that out as well to get that extra 15% additional life to keep us alive while stuff is attacking us. We get the Booming Voice and Raid Leader. We go ahead and max those as well, just to enhance our shouts further. Down here, I went ahead and maxed Pit Fighter, put 2 in No Mercy, 1 in Exposed Vulnerability. I don't really worry about vulnerable because most people die on the first or second hit. I'm not too worried about proccing the vulnerability. Some people are more worried about that. Personally, I'd rather just consistent damage than worrying about proccing a CC and then doing more damage to something. Hamstring's gonna have our bleed effect slow, so we're always gonna be CC'd as long as we're using our skills. So if we hit them with like a flay, and then they get hit by the thorns, they're dead. They're dead almost every time. Cut to the bone, I went ahead and maxed that. Bleeding effects deal 18% increased damage. That's just to get our bleed ticking higher and higher. Wraith of the Berserker, I use this just to keep up Berserker mode. A lot of people use chains. Personally, I just like Wraith of the Berserker. I like to always be in Berserk mode. You'll see why once we go over the aspects. Finally, our passive is going to be Gushing Wounds. That's our main passive, and that's going to help with the bleed as well. Most people ask me, how do we do damage if nothing attacks us? You have to be able to do damage when you're not getting attacked, so that's why this is a bleed thorns build. We do, heavily value thorns over everything else, but we make sure that we value damage over time as well. For our direct damage, we get direct damage against bleeding enemies has up to 25% chance to stun for 2 seconds. These two synergize very, very well. This is where stunning a bleeding enemy deals 38% of their total bleeding amount to them as physical damage. Now, this does not take away the bleed that's on them. This is a stacked damage on top of the bleed that you're stacking on them as well. It makes for massive direct damage, great single target. For the helmet, I do gain armor based on attacking, based on doing damage, because you always end up having that. The chest piece, I used razor plate. Now for the helmet, let me go over the stats. I do cooldown reduction, armor, all stats. Those are the most important things. The steel grasp, that's on the helmet. A lot of these are gonna have dead stats. I got all the gear I needed. I'll focus on the stats later. That's kind of what I did personally. How you build is how you build. The gloves, I went for the direct damage, of course, that applies when it's direct damage against bleeding. It has the chance of stun. It's great. It helps with CCs. I prioritized strength. I don't care about the crit chance. That does not mean anything, but that 15 attack speed is massive. It's a lot of attack speed. For the pants, I did gain 4% damage reduction for each nearby bleeding enemy up to 20%. This is great because everything's always bleeding around us almost all the time. On pants, you can get thorns. On a chest piece, you can get thorns. And on a neck piece, you can get thorns. So these are the 3 things you're going to want to value getting. And you're going to always want to keep all your sockets with green gems in your armor so that you have as much thorns as possible. Boots, becoming injured while crowd controlled grants you unstoppable for 4 seconds. This just almost is always, if you get injured while you're crowd controlled, you're almost always crowd controlled. So I mean, it's just very beneficial if you need to get out of a situation in a pinch. This is one of our most important thorns aspects. This one is, I mean, personally, I need a much bigger or higher percent, but the higher the percent you can get, the better, and you always want this on your 2-hand because this makes your thorns do AoE damage. If something hits you, it's going to not only do damage to that thing, but it's got an 80% chance to do damage to everything else. Mine is 64, of course. For the weapons, I prioritize strength, stats, like other stats, damage over time. I personally need to start valuing more damage to healthy enemies is what I think I want to start going for, because almost everything is healthy when it's AoE'd. Personally, that's just kind of the route I'm going to go. This one is going to have the stunning a bleeding enemy deals the percent of damage, percent of bleed as physical damage, which is amazing. It's really good. This weapon I went with basic skills for the 15% because we're always hitting them to proc that damage reduction as well as the added thorns. So having more speed is just going to make that a lot better. And it also helps with stacking bleed. You want to swing faster to stack more bleed. This is the aspect for why you want to always keep berserking up. I have a really low roll on this aspect. I have 4785, but I gain 4,785 thorns whenever I am in berserking mode, which is also affected by my strength as well as everything else, because as I get more thorns, it's going to be because it's off of percents, it just goes that much higher. It's a really good aspect, and why I keep berserk up all the time. Now I'm thinking about changing this out because I don't stand still very often now that I've gotten a lot stronger, but deals 9.5% increased damage each second you stand still. So the longer you stand still when you're fighting bosses, this is really good. It's just really good for the single target. It helps with the stacking the bleed. You have up to 30% chance to gain fury when you rend. This is just nice if you want to just keep bleeding hold groups and just keep going and not have to worry about fury. And then I have this, which is, it's all right. It's really low. But you heal for a percent of life based on close enemies. You always have enemies close to you because you're doing thorns to them. You want them to be close range. You want them to attack you. So you're going to go for that. I personally like to get the damage reduction while fortified on my pants, on my chest. I went damage reduction while injured and fortified on these pants. These things are crazy for damage reduction. I mean, there's just so much damage reduction on these pants. These are so defensive. They're really good. You want to go defensive on your skills because the more damage you can take, the more damage you put out. And the best part about this build is it scales with difficulty. Your damage, your thorns, is literally based off of the damage dealt to you. So in a higher difficulty, you're going to receive a lot higher damage. Now with Paragon, I'll kind of give you an idea, but my Paragon, it's not perfect. There's totally places that this could be improved on. And I would be happy to see people post in the comments what direction I should have gone, or what I should have done. But I basically valued getting life and armor. Any like free ones, like these are basically free. I was here, so I might as well go there, But the one key one that is the most important is this legendary node. Blood Rage, killing an enemy has 10% chance to grant berserking for 5 seconds. I forget which board this is. I don't know how to tell which board this one is, but this one has the berserking duration. I went ahead and got any nodes that went for berserking duration, and anything that helped with damage over time or damage reduction to bleeding enemies. Right now for the glyphs, I'm running Disembowel and Revenge. Those are the 2 glyphs I'm running right now. We'll finish up with the boss, and if anybody has any questions or comments, please post them in the comment section. If you enjoyed the build, please consider subscribing. I haven't been doing a lot of this type of content, build guides or anything otherwise. But it's something I'm considering trying to get into. I always stream on twitch.com/liftedgn it's twitch.tv/liftedgn, sorry, as well as kick.com/liftedgn. Sometimes I stream on YouTube as well. So whatever platform you kind of like to watch on, feel free to. The build just kind of destroys. You never have to worry about dying. Oh, well, there it is. Look at that. Finished it up, no problem. We'll put the level on this. And thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one, okay? Take it easy.